Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you are looking for the workshop, Shifting Power, Authentically Engaging Youth in Violence Prevention, then you are in the right place. So congratulations, you made it. I am super excited today to learn from our awesome presenters who are my comrades in violence prevention and also my friends. They're going to be introducing themselves in just a second. I want to remind everyone that towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to be linking the session evaluation into the chat, which are super helpful to have. So please fill those out right after if you have time, and you can always come back to it later if you don't. But yeah, I'm Heidi, and I'm just the virtual room host today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over.
Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Reyna. I am the violence prevention educator at the Advocates for Survivors of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault in Haley. And I'm also the supervisor for the Every Teen Counts interns. They're a group of paid teen interns that work for us here at the Advocates.
Thanks, Monica. My name is Tracy DeMarcus. My pronouns are she, her. I am the prevention program manager at the Women's and Children's Alliance in Boise. And I also oversee our youth rep group, which is a youth leadership group of teen volunteers. So.
All right, so here is what we are going to be doing today. So we will assess current strategies for youth engagement. And then next, we're going to identify opportunities for action to meaningfully engage youth in our work. And then finally, we're going to explore strategies based on mutual success and collaboration. We are going to have many opportunities during this time for you to think and reflect on your current work and practice, or use the tools that we are discussing. So it'll be helpful to have the handout that we provided to the conference. If you don't have that, here's the link there in the chat, and you should be able to download a PDF of that.
So before we really get into the kind of meat of the presentation, we really just want to get into the mindset of why are we working with youth? Why are we working toward engaging youth in our work? And so I just want you to think about for a second, when was the last time that you talked to a young person about their experiences that they're having that might be influenced by the work that you do? And while you think about that, we're going to play a quick clip from our podcast, The Prevention Perspective. This is an episode where we are talking with two of the youth reps about youth leading violence prevention work. And this is just one way that we are working towards bringing youth voice to the forefront with our audiences. And so, yeah, so we just wanted to give you a quick clip of the youth reps on the podcast. So think about, the last time you've experienced some kind of engagement with youth, and listen to a couple of our awesome youth reps.
But actually having a peer-run prevention program, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it means the world, honestly, because if you think about when we're young in our middle school and leading up to high school, we are building the map for our new generation. So the cultural norms and what's just expected of us. So if, the high school peer influence culture, if I wear certain pairs of shoes, and that might be an influence, but if I can make that influence that we all deserve like a healthy relationship, I think that means the absolute world.
Yay, that was Lene. She's amazing. She's been a youth rep now for 2 years. She's a graduating senior, which I'm really sad to see her go, but I'm really proud of her accomplishments and what she's going to do next. But yeah, this is, again, just one way that we are working towards engaging youth with the WCA. And so I'm curious to know if you all want to just type in the chat really quick what brought you to this workshop today, or what you're hoping to get out of it. That would really be helpful for us to know, and hopefully we'll get all of that covered in today's workshop, or maybe a follow-up, depending on how many questions and things there are. So yeah, go ahead and put in the chat something that you're hoping to get from the workshop today. And, oh, sorry, Callie, you can go to the next one. And so we're going to spend a few more minutes really just trying to get out of this adult mindset that I think a lot of us get really set in, and think back to when we were young. For some of us, this may be further away than others, but I think it's still really helpful to reflect on the experiences that we had when we were teens. And you might be wondering, why are we spending time on this? It can be easy for adults, I think, to get really set in this kind of standard practice and professionalism, and that can be helpful sometimes, but also can create barriers when we're trying to work with young people, with teens. And so we're going to spend some time really trying to get back to thinking about our younger selves so that hopefully we can better connect with the youth that we want to be working with. So you can see some lovely gallery photos of all of us, Monica and myself, and even our room moderator, Heidi, from when we were teens. I had a weird hat phase apparently in my young teens, which looking back now, no idea where that came from, but we're going to use a Jamboard to go through some prompts today. So if you've never used a Jamboard before, this is another really great tool to help engage youth. And so we're going to put the Jamboard link in the chat, and going through some prompts to, again, get us kind of thinking back to our youth. So when you're in the Jamboard, you just click in the Jamboard and you should see a prompt. There are 5 pages worth of prompts, and you can navigate those by using the top arrows to go back and forth through the pages in the Jamboard. And then to respond to the prompts, you can use the toolbar on the left-hand side of your screen. There is a sticky note option. There is a text option where you can just type in your responses. Or if you want to get really fun with it, you can go to the insert an image option, again, on the left-hand sidebar, and use the Google search option to find an image of whatever you're hoping to share with the response to the prompt. So we're going to give you like 3 to 5 minutes to explore those prompts. The first couple are kind of fun, kind of silly, again, just to kind of get us thinking back into that time. And then we'll get a little bit more serious with the later prompts, but encourage you to go into the Jamboard and explore those prompts, and then we'll go through them together.
And to remind everyone, that link Monica put in the chat, so that's how you get to the Jamboard.
Thank you, Heidi. Oh, we already had some real good responses going on this first page. I'm liking that. So, Callie, do you want to play some music?
I see that the Jamboard is getting a little jammed up. So you can also put your responses in the chat if you'd like as well.
All right, we'll give you just like one more minute to go through the Jamboard. All right. You can feel free to keep adding to the Jamboards if you'd like, but we're just going to kind of go through them really quickly. So this first one, I love this. When you were 15 or 16, who was your favorite band or musician? We got some Britney Spears, we got some Taylor Swift, some Paramore. I really like that. Nickelback, whoever that was. Thank you for being brave and honest with us in this space today. This really harkens me back. Can we look at the next one, Callie? 15 or 16, romantic or platonic crush. I'm seeing a couple of Pirates of the Caribbean folks up here. That was my jam as well back then. JTT, Nick Jonas, some real classics of the 2000s happening. Nick Carter even, he was my preferred Backstreet Boy as well. So let's see. Okay, so what's the next one? Okay, so those are fun and silly, but again, just kind of fun to think back. So when you were 15 or 16, what other youth inspired you? I love this question, and I'm seeing so much on here about friends and family. And I think that really does just go to show how much influence young people have on each other. And again, I think that's why we're really, really invested in doing this work and doing it in a meaningful way, because we can see even now as adults, we reflect back on those young people that influenced our lives when we were that age. So I think this really just goes to show this is why we're here today. Next, where did you not feel seen, heard, or supported? We're seeing some places at home, school, parents, church, administrators, siblings. And I'm curious, and if for anybody who would like to, feel free to share in the chat, like, what was it about these spaces that made you not feel heard, seen, or supported? Were there things in common that these places had that, again, hopefully by identifying them or thinking about that in terms of our experiences, we can maybe try to make the spaces that we're creating for youth, hopefully not these things. So if anybody wants to share, what was it about these spaces that made that feel not safe for you? Let's see, I'm seeing in the chat, judged, misunderstood, not a lot of support for someone with ADHD, especially as a female. Oh, interesting. Really powerless, absolutely. And I think that's a really common theme, at least. And Monica, feel free to chime in here. That's something I feel like is very common across the board from the teens that we've worked with, or the young folks that we hear from, is like, they just don't feel like they have the power to do things or to actually create change in the systems that they're a part of, because they're so heavily dominated by adults. Let's see, lack of interest from those able to make change. Yeah, or maybe just the adults in those spaces were disconnected. They just didn't really feel like that was something that they had to bring into that space as for teens. Sorry, dismissed, unappreciated, invisible, troublemaker. Yeah. So again, these are just things that hopefully we can keep in mind and think about, you know, the spaces that we're creating for young people. Again, hopefully not doing these things, or hopefully not intentionally doing these things. You know, none of us are perfect, but being aware of it can also really help with that. And then finally, where did you feel heard, seen, or supported? And then the same question, if you want to pop into the chat, what was it about these spaces that made you feel supported, safe, or seen? I'm seeing with friends, sports teams, absolutely, clubs, camps, band. I am a past band geek, so I really resonate with that one. Reading fiction. Sometimes we can find those spaces in our own selves or imaginations, right? Siblings, I'm seeing brothers, clubs, extracurriculars. There was an outreach center for teens in my small town. That's awesome. Yeah, so what was it about these spaces that made you feel heard and seen and supported? And how can we hopefully bring those things into the spaces that we're creating for young people? Oh, thank you, Monica. Do you want to unmute and actually share that?
Yeah, so I shared that really something for me when I felt heard, seen, or supported is when I was given choice and power. I think even sometimes we just don't think about how many opportunities there are to give young people an opportunity to make a decision versus making decisions for them. So that's one thing I want to call out.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. And we'll be exploring that a little bit more in more detail coming up. But again, so thinking about, you know, if we had these spaces, what was it that made them feel safe? What was it that made them feel accessible to young people? And how can we bring those things into the spaces that we're creating for young folks within our programs? And I think for time, we probably need to move on, but yeah, keep popping those in the chat. All of this will be recorded and shared out as well. So that's great.
Thanks for that, Tracy. I think coming from a place of empathy is always just such a great place to start. And I love that activity. Feel free to steal it. It's not ours, we stole it. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this idea of authentically engaging youth in prevention. So often traditional efforts to engage youth may focus on a problem or the problems. They may be reactive. They serve targeted youth, and we see youth as recipients. And usually it's recipients of a program or a class or something that's designed by adults. So authentically engaging youth can also be called meaningful youth engagement or positive youth development. And these approaches aim for outcomes that benefit the young people involved, the program, and society as a whole. And they see young people as active participants, and their voices are heard and respected. So we're going to go through this awesome model created by Roger Hart called the Hart's Ladder of Participation. Just real quick, I'm curious, can I see some hands or reactions if people have seen this before? Any reactions? You can use your reaction button, I think, if we have those. Okay, a few, awesome. All right, so let's go through this. So each rung is a different level of participation for a young person, and they're really based on the varying degrees to which a young person has freedom of choice, responsibility, voice, information, and decision-making power. So the bottom rung is manipulation. And this is essentially when adults use a young person to support a cause and pretend that the cause is inspired by the young person, but really it's not. So it's when we use a young person to our end. Decoration is when young people are used to help bolster a cause in a relatively indirect way. So although adults don't pretend that the cause is inspired by young people, it's still like it's putting someone in a t-shirt or putting them in a photo or an image when they really had nothing to do with the process or the program. And then tokenism is when young people appear to be given a choice, but in fact have little or no choice about what they do or how they participate. Often tokenism can also be thought about when we're asking one young person to represent the views of all the young people in our area. So these bottom rungs, 1, 2, and 3, are non-participation. Here youth have little to no freedom of choice, voice, decision-making power, information, or responsibility. And they often reflect the ideas that young people are inferior or less important than older people, and that adults should have power over youth, which is commonly referred to as adultism. So now we're going to look at the top four, or the top 5 rungs. So assigned but informed. This rung is where young people are assigned a specific role and informed about how and why they're being involved. So for example, a lot of youth community boards operate in this way. And then next we have consulted and informed. And this step happens when young people give advice on projects or programs designed and run by adults. The young people are informed about how their input will be used and the outcomes and the decisions that are made by adults. A lot of youth advisory councils might work in this mode. And then we have adult-initiated shared decisions with young people. This step occurs when projects or programs are initiated by adults, but the decision-making is shared with young people. So for example, some participatory action research follows this model. And then rung 7, young people initiated and directed. This step is when young people initiate and direct a project or program, and the adults are involved in a supportive role. So for example, youth-led activism might fall into this category. And then the 8th rung, youth-initiated shared decisions with adults. This happens when projects or programs are initiated by young people and decision-making is shared between young people and adults. These projects usually empower young people while simultaneously enabling them to access and learn from the life experience and expertise of adults. So for example, the term youth-adult partnerships might fall into this model as well, depending on its structure. All right, that was kind of very quick. I'm so sorry for running a little fast on time. One thing I really want to emphasize is that anywhere in the top rungs can be helpful for the organization and the youth, and there really is no expectation that we're always operating at level 8. I think both Tracy and I would say that that's often not the reality. So really, it's important to kind of think about this not as like levels and steps, even though it is a ladder, but instead think about it as ways that we can understand what we're doing and how we can improve. All right, and we actually sometimes may be at different levels in the same program or project as well. So let's think about some quick examples. So I'm going to go ahead and read some scenarios, and I would like you all to think about which rung of the ladder of participation do you see this as? All right, so a draft version of each edition of a magazine is trialed with a group of teens before the final production stage. Teens comment on the value and the relevance of the topic matter, as well as its general appeal. They know that their views are taken seriously and they are encouraged to become involved in the process with their ideas used in future editions. Teens as readers are encouraged to write for other teens and understand that youth contributions are appreciated and welcomed. So go ahead and pop in the chat, which rung of the ladder do you feel this represents? What do you see? Some 6, consulted and informed, some adult initiated, shared decisions with youth. A lot of 6. Someone write in the chat, what are you seeing that's telling you that this is a 6 or a 5? What levels of voice are you seeing, or decision making, or information? Yes, the magazine is run by adult, but includes teen input. Absolutely. I think this could be a 6 or a 5, depending on the intricacies of this, right? So the adults are the ones planning, running, and publishing this magazine, but they are using youth input, and the youth know what is going on and how their voice is being used. Absolutely. All right, let's do another one. Youth are invited to a conference panel. They're led to believe they have a voice, but in fact have little or no input about the topic. They have little or no opportunity to formulate their own opinions or discuss the topic with their peers. Although the youth are selected by adults, the implication is that they represent other youth. like all other youth. 1 and 2, seeing some 3s. What are you seeing that's telling you that this is a 2 or a 3? Given little participation, but supposed to be the voice for all, no input. Youth are there for show. No opportunity to formulate their own opinions. They're not being supported in preparation. Exactly. Yes, so this, I would say, is definitely tokenism, if not decoration, depending on the level of information that these folks got. But you're absolutely right. This is non-participation. There is very little information, voice, decision-making. All right, we'll do one more. So which level of participation is this? So a paid teen internship at a local nonprofit. The teen interns have a rough timeline of awareness months and prevention events and campaigns and are in charge of deciding how to engage their community with these topics. Teens make decisions as a group and divvy up tasks and roles among themselves. Adult supervisor facilitates meetings, trains interns, and assists them in hitting important milestones. Where do you see this? 8. That sounds familiar. It should, Heidi. All right, 8, 7, 8. Yes. What are you seeing? Adults are still involved, but teens are leading it. Absolutely. What else are you seeing? Teens are given opportunity to make decisions. They're consulted and informed. Combined power, adults supervise but don't direct. Absolutely. So this, I think, is an example too of how complex it might be. So this is modeled after the program that we have at the Advocates. And I would say at times it is totally an 8, at times it's a 7, right? I think really figuring out when we can, as an adult, when I'm involved in the decision-making versus when it's best for me not to be involved in the decision-making. Awesome, you all did really great.
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, so again, the ladder is a great tool, but I wouldn't say that you really need to get hung up on like, okay, I'm at this rung always, I have to be here. It really is just a good way to reflect on like, okay, where are we doing well in terms of incorporating youth into our programs or letting the youth lead our programs, and recognizing that we might move on the ladder, but hopefully avoiding those bottom 3 rungs, because again, that's non-participation. That's just more of a manipulative way of incorporating youth into programming. So recognize that you might want to move rungs on the ladder, either as an organization or as a program. I know at least within my organization, my program, the prevention program, is obviously at a different place than our organization as a whole. And that's okay. And that's where we're at. But a lot of times where we're at on the ladder depends on these elements of youth participation. And Monica went through them really quickly, but so again, recognize that people are in different places in their journey. You might be feeling like, I don't even have a ladder, I don't even have a step stool, like I need to get somebody to donate one, or I need to work it into my next grant budget. Like totally fine, wherever you're at. The ladder, again, is just meant to be a tool, but these elements can be applied to any program, regardless of where you're at in your kind of development for youth engagement. So we're looking at freedom of choice, again, that ability to decide to participate or not. Information, so the access that youth have to comprehensive information that is crucial for their participation. Decision-making power, the ability for youth to make decisions related to the program, activity, or the organization as a whole. Youth voice, so the ability for them to voice their opinions and views and be heard and respected. And then responsibility. So a young person's ability to act independently within the program or the organization. So really, where you're going to be on the ladder can really depend on these individual elements. So for example, in the previous scenario with the magazine, we're looking at that kind of consulted and informed rung, and we want to move maybe to the next rung, which is adult initiated and shared decision making with youth. So we might consider examining the elements of voice and decision making power. So rather than having adults write the magazine and then run it past teens towards the end or towards the final production, perhaps giving teens the opportunities to write their own articles, to determine themes ahead of time, or decide on articles to feature in the magazine together. So those are ways that we can use these elements as a way to kind of move up the ladder and up those rungs. So on page 2 of your handout, there is a kind of modified version of this. Monica, do we have time? I'm sorry, I'm like not good at doing the time check for people to do some self-reflection.
I think a couple minutes,
Okay.
just because we're running a little low. So yeah, I put the link in the chat as well for the PDF of the handout.
Yeah, so if you can just take a minute to yourself and do some self-reflection using the handout that Monica put in the chat, or if you have it, or if you don't have it, and that's okay, just looking at these elements and determining like where are these elements present or not present in your program? Where could you maybe make changes or improvements? Again, regardless of where you're at in terms of your program, like if you have a fully functioning, youth program like Monica, you can still reflect on all of these and be like, okay, for this specific activity that we did for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, we kind of fell off on this element or whatever. Like, how can we bring that back into this and not do that again next year or something like that. So again, wherever you're at, these elements will help you reflect on like where your program can go or where your program can grow in terms of youth engagement. So take a couple of minutes to just kind of think about that to yourself. And then we'll have some more time towards the end to hopefully share with one another.
I have a quick note too. I noticed someone put in what they're hoping to get out is what to do when you have like mandated youth participation. And I think this model of looking at these elements can really help when maybe we have some constraints in one element. And so that doesn't mean that we can't, work on these other pieces where there is some opportunity for leverage. And while y'all are working, I'm going to have DJ Callie put some tunes on because I know I work a little better when I have a little background music. Thank you, Callie.
Okay, so take a minute to just kind of final wrap up your thoughts. And again, hopefully we'll have some more time here towards the end, but also, again, the reason that we also provided this handout for you is because this is not enough time at all to start really planning out like your youth engagement strategy. Really, this is just like a time to get the ball rolling and hopefully have some time to work together and like workshop and brainstorm. But like realistically, this could take an entire day to work through these like handouts and really try to frame up what you're trying to do. So again, this is just a minute to just kind of get the juices flowing, so to speak.
I believe this is me. I'm so sorry. I thought there was a slide in between there. All right. So thank you, Tracy, for that. So there is a quote that I really, really love by author and speaker Simon Sinek. And that is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I know that a lot of us do not ask people to pay for our services are free, but we still have some level of wanting to have people buy in, right? We ask people to buy into behaviors like being an active bystander or centering respect in their relationships. We ask people to buy into the idea that prevention is even possible, that we can do something to keep our community safe. And so it's important for us to dig deep about our why for engaging youth in prevention efforts. This really helps us connect better with our youth and connect better with our community as well. And our why really reminds us what needs to be centered in everything that we're doing. So I'll quickly share my why and our why at the Advocates. So we really believe that the ETC program, our Every Teen Counts interns, are essential to our prevention education team. Folks between the ages, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but right, young folks between the ages of 16 and 24 are at the highest risk for different forms of violence, for bullying, for dating violence, and for sexual assault. And we know that teens will often not reach out to adults or agencies run by adults. Instead, we know that teens listen to, respect, and follow other teens. So really, teens look to their peers for support and guidance on how they should act in relationship when they need support. And so really, we believe that young people not only need a seat at the table in our prevention efforts, they need to help us build the table itself. Tracy, what is your why?
Thanks for asking, Monica. Wink. And I'm going to go off script because I've actually been thinking about this a lot. If somebody would have asked me like 4 years ago, what's my why? I would have said, because my board wants me to educate young people, right? And that was like the directive, and that was like, great, that got us going. But as I did more work with youth and really working with like, the folks that we work with in schools and in like out of school programs or youth serving organizations, it became more and more clear that we need to go beyond just like educating youth about healthy and unhealthy relationships, but really opening up a space for young people to explore and develop their values and norms, and that can really be impacting that's what really is going to impact other youth, not just me going in and doing a classroom presentation in 45 minutes, but like really creating the space to do deep reflection on the norms and values that we have as a culture and where young people can shift those values. And so as an organization, our vision is to foster community where everyone thrives in safe and healthy relationships. And in order to make this vision a reality, we have to center the voices of those who are experiencing violence. And that means, again, not just going and educating people, but really creating that space for introspection and reflection for young people. So we developed the Youth Rep program, which again is like a leadership volunteer program. And I'll say that it's still growing and changing, and it looks a lot different now than it did 2 years ago, and it'll look different next year than it did this past year. But we have really centered our work on this idea that youth lead, inform, and or facilitate all of our prevention work. That's just not something we can't do anymore. So yeah, that's a process, and it involves a lot of shifting and stepping back as adults and shifting power to the youth reps and to the other youth that we work with. But that's what we're working towards every day.
Thanks, Tracy. Oof, that got me in the feels.
No, I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, I'm totally going to go off script of what I actually wrote down. But anywho, so we are going to go into some breakout rooms here. And again, this is really going to be the time where you can talk to each other and work together on some of this stuff. And I would encourage you to go to page 3 of your handout. And this is an adapted SWOT analysis. We are calling it our SWAR analysis because we don't like the threats piece of the SWOT analysis, but rather would focus on the resources that are available to us, or the resources that we'll need to make something happen. So go to page 3 of the handout. And I would also encourage you, again, we don't have a lot of time for this, but don't skip the why piece. Again, identifying the why is really what is going to guide any work that you do with young people, or should be guiding any work that you do with young people. So if you don't have time to really dive into it now, that's okay. But I would say, you know, sometimes we can skip beyond the like kind of big nebulous questions into the like, okay, how do I do it? What do I do? What are the steps? That sort of thing. But really we need to bring in the why as well into doing that. So if you don't have time today, I would encourage you to go back to that and really take some time to explore the why of your program or the why of your organization. And then kind of go through the next pieces. But what we're going to do is spend 3 to 5 minutes maybe going through the analysis on your own. Again, those strengths, what is your organization or program doing well? Weaknesses, where are there opportunities for improvement? And give youth the opportunity to explore their why. Yes, thank you, Heidi. And then the resources, again, what resources do you have? What resources do you need to make this happen? And then we're going to go into some breakout rooms to be able to, again, like share with one another kind of where you're at. What are you trying to accomplish? Maybe there are some initial steps that you can come up with together to get things rolling. Again, wherever you're at in this process, this can be a helpful kind of just jumping off point. So again, that link for the handout is in your chat. So spend a couple of minutes just kind of doing a self-reflection, and then let's see, we'll give you what, 2 to 3 minutes, and then pop you into breakout rooms.
That
Cool.
sounds good, Tracy. Yeah.
Awesome. So if we could get some more jam music. Callie. All righty. So Mary is our tech person, and I want to make sure we are good to go for breakout groups. So again, we know that you won't be able to fully work through this process, but wanted to make sure you had a chance to work together and start that brainstorming, sharing ideas, creating some realistic, actionable steps to increase meaningful youth engagement within your programs, whatever that might look like for you. So we'll give you, boy, we were hoping for about 25 minutes. So I think we're only going to get about 15 maybe.
I think 15, we're off at 12:30. Is that right? So
maybe
I think maybe 5.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I appreciate you monitoring our time. So yeah, if we could get Mary to break us into breakout groups and again, go through that analysis, or if you get to this take action page and actually want to start identifying some steps, feel free to get to that point as well if you would like. But yeah, we'll be ready to pop into groups whenever Mary.
Great. Yep. Great. All good to go. We'll open them now. Thank you.
As we progress. So can I just talk this through you really quickly to make sure that I'm thinking about it right? Because we are adapting, which I totally am okay with and love partly. It's terrible, but presentations never stay on timelines. So we basically have what we accounted for loosely was like 10 minutes of talking, 10 minutes of that activity. But I think the talking is not going to take that long. It's just the mutual collaboration and then your point about evaluation and adaptation. And then the very end questions. So I don't think that's going to take 10 minutes overall.
Okay.
And then we did want to do 10 minutes with the connection piece, but I think that could be less time.
Yeah, I think, and that's something too we could also keep open. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you want to go back into the Jamboard.
So what if we did 5 minutes for that and then call it a hot 5 for speaking, or 8 if you're more comfortable with that?
For what part?
So basically 15 minutes we need to be at, we need to return back to normally stuff at 15 till the end. Does that make sense?
So yeah, pop into the evaluation and adaptation slide at 12:15 or maybe even 12:13. We can swing.
Yeah. So we could have given them more time, but we can always add it too, right, Mary? Is there a timer on them, Mary?
Nope, I can end the
Okay.
I plan to end the
anytime.
manually, so you guys just let me know.
Also, my computer time is not accurate to the time. My computer says 12:08.
12:07.
I will keep my phone out so I can watch.
And I can keep my eye on the time too if you'd like to set a tentative end date or end time for the breakout rooms, and I can just let you know and check in closer to that time.
Yeah, maybe a 2-minute warning or something.
Okay, great. So that would be 12:20. Is that when you'd like to come back, or give it a little bit more time?
I think 12:13 if we're 2-minute warning.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Can do.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you guys want to jump into any of these breakouts, just let me know. I can assign you.
I'm ready to do that. Tracy, do you want to talk about anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, actually it looks like so what happened here is I've assigned breakout rooms, but it looks like some folks just haven't joined. So we have some very small breakout rooms. So would you guys be okay if I maybe put you guys in a smaller population breakout room to help folks out? All right, I'm gonna send you both to 3, or should I send you guys to different rooms?
Different ones would be
Different,
fine.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, I will send Monica to 3. And Tracy, let's send you to 4.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Close.
Yep. All breakout rooms have closed.
Every Idahoan aged 12.
Okay, Callie, can I get our next slide real quick? Thank you. I just want to mention a quick word about evaluation and adaptation. I hope that you were able to spend some time together in some fruitful conversation, and look forward to working together throughout this process in the future. But just to quickly kind of glaze over this is the last page of your handout, and it's a lot of script, so I'm not even going to read it. But I just want to say that evaluation and adaptation is ongoing, especially with youth work. So it's important to set realistic expectations for yourself, maybe your leadership, your grantors, etc. And that it's crucial to maintain this kind of cyclical model of evaluation and adaptation for authentic youth engagement, because your efforts and your programs are probably not going to look the same from year to year. And that's a good thing if you're really taking that that feedback and that youth voice into account. That's part of the gig. So this is just kind of another reminder of that.
Thanks, Tracy. One other thing too that we really just felt like we had to talk about if we're going to be talking about meaningfully engaging youth and authentically engaging youth is this idea of mutual success and collaboration. So hopefully in your small groups, and something Tracy and I are often thinking about, is that there's no one way to meaningfully engage youth. There's really a number of ways. And ultimately, we can connect and share resources and grow and learn together and rely on each other for support. That is so key and has been so essential for each of us. And we also, this is a great thing because we can model collaboration, the relationship building work that we want our youth to also have. And ultimately, it also helps us to avoid silos and avoid competing for resources, but instead sharing resources. So one awesome resource that is available to all of you is the Idaho Youth for Change Collective, which Tracy and I are a part of, as well as Callie, who's helping us out today. And so by nurturing the conditions for self-empowerment, the Idaho Youth for Change Collective will strengthen skills, build relationships, and spark equitable and healthy, thriving communities across Idaho. And really, this was created to support the Idaho Youth for Change Summit, which is an annual summit planned by Youth Adult Partnerships. And the summit allows youth and the collective to allows youth to connect across many different health interests and to have the foundation of health equity and shared risk and protective factors. But outside of the summit, the collective provides opportunities to share and receive training, to support current youth-led work that's already happening, and also provides a tool for connecting youth with other youth. And one of that is our awesome Instagram account, which Callie Bruchette heads up. And I'll put that in the chat later. It's a really awesome place to follow. And we would also love to highlight the work that you're doing as well.
Just one other resource that we want to highlight is the WCA's Worth Prevention Resource Hub. This was born during the times of COVID, when prevention practices had to adapt and get digital. And also just recognizing it can be really time consuming and challenging to spend time researching and finding resources and programs, especially for smaller organizations that maybe don't have a dedicated prevention staff person. So really it's our hope that by pulling all of these resources together for service providers, teachers, parents, anyone else who's interested in violence prevention work, kind of a one-stop shop for resources. And then original or shareable content. So videos, our podcasts, reports, curriculum, programs, all of that we are hosting in our website now, and it's regularly updated, adding new resources and information all the time. So that's just another resource that we want to make sure folks know about and can access if they need it. So I'm going to pop the link to the chat or to that in the chat. And then this last little bit, again, in the name of mutual success and collaboration, we want everyone here to make sure they know that there are folks in this state, in this community, that you can reach out to for support, to brainstorm, vent, connect, collaborate with. You're not alone in this work. And there are so many amazing people doing similar work across the state. There's a wealth of knowledge and information and experience in this virtual space here. And so we just want to make sure that everyone knows that like there are folks out there that support them. So what we're going to do is do another Jamboard. And we want you to go in and identify what you want to know more about, because again, this was a really brief time that we got to spend together today. And so there's probably going to be more information that you might want or need. So what do you want to know more about? Or if you are a person who has knowledge and expertise about something, if you are an expert and want to be a resource for others, we also want you to identify that and yourself as that expert. So on this first page of the Jamboard, who are you going to call? What do you want to know more about? Like, what are the things that you feel like would be helpful for you to get more information on to continue to build your youth engagement? And these might be opportunities that we can provide through the collective or just through our programs, depending on kind of the need. So go ahead and either plug in a sticky note or a text box under the areas that you are interested in learning more about. And then the next page of the Jamboard, Call Me Maybe, is about who has the knowledge and how can we get people connected to them. So if you have the expertise, the experience in any of these categories or something else, go ahead and pop it under the other. But if you want to be able to be accessed as a resource by other people in the state doing this work, please put your name under one of those categories or any of those categories. And what Monica and I are committed to doing is pulling this information together and making it available for you all. Because again, we can't do this work alone. And we need to be willing to share our expertise and knowledge for the greatest good, which is ultimately a safe, healthy, thriving Idaho. So go into the Jamboard, fill it out, and then we'll connect people after this workshop.
And Tracy, it sounds like the Jamboard isn't working, or I guess it's working for some and maybe not others. I see that it's working for some. So For those of you that's working for it, great. And if it's not working for you, as I see many of you are already doing, please go ahead and write your answers in the chat will work.
Please. Thank you. Yeah, I wonder if there's a cap on how many people can be in a Jamboard.
As you're putting things in the chat too, it would be great if you could note if that's something you want to know more about or something that you would be happy to talk with someone else about.
Thank you. All right, and we'll leave the Jamboards open for a little while so people can keep adding to them if they want. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited about all the connections that are happening. We know that this room is full of folks that have so much experience and so much knowledge, and so we really wanted an opportunity to connect everyone together. So we've done a lot in a little bit of time, and it can be helpful to think about maybe one thing that we can do as a result of our time together. What is the action that will launch our plans? What is an easy win? So we'd like you to think about and answer the question, what is one action that I can take in the next month to move closer toward meaningful youth engagement? And you can just write this on a sticky note for yourself and put it up in your office. If you feel comfortable, you can share it in the chat as well. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be big. It can be really small. Whatever you feel like will help you to keep moving forward. Yes, follow the Idaho YFC Instagram. Love that, Heidi. I love add youth concerns to my DSW research. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. All right, well, as folks are writing it down on their sticky notes or putting it in the chat, we wanted to share our contact information as well as the email, website, and Instagram for the Idaho Youth for Change Collective. You're always welcome to reach out to us with any questions. We are happy to help folks out as well. Tracy, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just grateful for everybody who joined us, and I'm happy to stay on for a couple of minutes in case anybody has questions. Because I know we didn't get to that. So yeah, this is a lot to go through in a little bit of time. So happy to stay on and chat.
A huge thank you to Tracy and Monica and Callie, who's going through our slides, and Mary, who provided our tech. Please fill out the evaluations. We have those listed in the chat as well. You can also find that on the general conference website. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.